Hello and welcome to another episode of Run Till You're Done. This week's guest I am more than looking forward to interviewing because she's just so much fun, and if you follow her on Instagram, she is Traffic Cone Llama, and she just has an incredible story to tell. So welcome to the podcast, Alice Townend.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
Welcome, Alice. We'll start by the way that we always start. And can you tell us how you got into running?
Yeah, so you can go right back to school, was when I first started. So I did cross country in school, and basically I was the only one stubborn enough to keep going. Once the teachers were out of sight, everybody else stopped and had a tab and walked very slowly, and I carried on. I did county cross country when I was 16. I actually raced in the nationals against Paula Radcliffe. She came second, I came last. So, you know, it wasn't exactly a salubrious occasion.
You were still there.
I was still there. There was lots of people that didn't finish because it was very muddy, and as you run round, you could see people's spikes had come off their feet. So I finished with both shoes. I did 1500 as well. I won 1500 meters race in the sort of district, but then it sort of, I never trained. I wasn't that interested in it particularly. I quite enjoyed it when I did it, but I wasn't that bothered. So that kind of all petered out. And my next kind of foray into running was in 2011 when I did the Race for Life 5K. And that was because my best friend Alena, who'd been diagnosed with breast cancer when she was 26, was just diagnosed with metastatic cancer. So that motivated me to kind of do some fundraising. And my sister, actually, who was definitely a runner and still is a runner, came over from New Zealand where she lives to run it with me. But I literally had to dust off my trainers because they were probably like retro antiques. And did that in about 33 minutes, had a great time. But then I didn't properly start running until almost exactly 7 years ago, August 2018. And I needed to lose some weight, and I had two kids that were running off and I couldn't keep up with them. And so I wanted to get fit to be able to keep up with my family. So I did the Couch to 5K. I was very much doing it as a means to an end. I didn't expect to enjoy it. I was just like, let's shed some timber and then forget about it. But actually, I really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's kind of escalated a bit from there. Really escalated in lockdown, I think, like a lot of people. But yeah, that's where it all started.
So there's a lot there when you got started in the early days. A couple of questions already come to mind. With the cross country, I used to hate it at school. I was the one always dodging it and trying to...
you were the one having a cigarette in the bush while I ran past you because I was stubborn.
Absolutely. Did you enjoy it?
I don't really know. So I mean, I can't have enjoyed it that much because I didn't bother training, and I didn't really, you know, I was competitive in as much as if I was doing it, I wanted to do well, but I didn't really care that much. I think I enjoyed it when I was doing it, but I guess I enjoyed the sense of achievement finishing it more than the actually doing.
And then with regards to your first race, you stopped and started a couple of times. When was your first race when you would say that you restarted from the Couch to 5K?
Yeah, my first race the first race I entered was the Great North Run. And I live in Newcastle, so it was one of those things. I came to Newcastle to university when I was 18, ages ago, 1991. And I actually entered the Great North Run 3 times when I was a student, but didn't do any training. So thought that would be stupid, and DNS 3 times. But yeah, I wanted to do the Great North Run, and I got a charity place for the charity where I work to raise money for breast cancer support group. And so as part of my training for that, I entered the Great North 10K, and I did that with my husband, who has done a bit of running previously, but wasn't particularly a runner either, but was fit, did a lot of cycling, did a lot of walking. So yeah, I did that with him, and I think I did it in about an hour 15, and I was just over the moon to finish. And you finish that race in Gateshead Stadium, Well, I don't know if you still do, but you did then. So you finished running around the athletics track and you sort of felt like a proper athlete. So that was quite fun.
And while you're doing all these races, I guess for half marathons and stuff, you're maybe not fueling as much, but nowadays you're getting into marathons, ultras.
Yeah.
What kind of fuel do you have for them?
So I mostly try and eat real food. I love good food and I love the trail snacks. And in fact, I was out for a run this weekend with a few women that we've got together based on loving trail snacks. So bagels with Marmite and cheese, potatoes, twiglets, watermelon. Those are mostly what I like. I think I like Fat Coke. If I have gels, I like the Cis Beta gels, the orange ones that are sort of you can get them gels, you can get like blocks of jelly. I like the Protein Rebel ones, and Tailwind and Active Root I'll have as drinks, but I try and eat as much real food as I can.
You had me at bagels, but then you said you put Marmite on it.
Yeah, Marmite's great. Not a fan.
I've never tried it.
It's good. I love Marmite.
She also mentioned Twiglets. Have you tried them, Nikki?
Oh, I love a Twiglet.
Yeah,
well, you'll probably like Marmite then.
Yeah. They're basically slathered in Marmite.
Dip the Twiglet in the Marmite.
Yeah.
You don't need to. They're both disgusting.
And I've got this great bit of kit. I don't know if you know Geeky Hiker, which is a front pack that you can put on under race packs, and it's brilliant for when you've got having food when you're going, because you've got like this zip top. All the snacks are just right there in front of you, so you can just pull it out and eat. It's brilliant.
Well, Mike had jumped the gun there with the fueling for the marathons and the ultra marathons. So we'd done the Great North Run. How did you manage to progress from that to go into ultra distances?
That was really during lockdown. So I was a member of a sort of Facebook group called the No Drama Llama Runners, and that's where the llama of the traffic cone llama comes from. And I joined it a bit before lockdown, but during lockdown there were lots of people who were furloughed. I wasn't. I had to still go to work, but lots of people were furloughed, and they did sort of monthly running challenges where everybody that wanted to take part would be randomized into teams, and then as a team you'd have a week and you'd have to go out and do as much as you could, and you'd get scored for distance, time on feet, elevation, and there was something else I can't remember now, but nothing about speed, all just about how far and how hard you could go, and then you'd get points, and there'd also be silly challenges along the way, and I love a silly challenge, so you'd score points with that, and these would happen every month. So we all ended up getting really quite close, and everybody sort of goading you to do more and more. So I kind of ended up I had actually entered York Marathon after I did my Great North Run, but that got cancelled because that was for 2020. I ended up running a marathon on my own in lockdown. It was when things started opening up a bit more. It was about June time, and somebody else in the llamas had done that. So I just went, I could do that. And, I'd been doing a lot of running, but just went out the next day and did it. And then the first ultra was Ultra North, which is a 55k around Newcastle. And they released the race, the entries 6 weeks out. So it was October 2020. I presume they, had been planning it in some time, and it was cancelled, and then they got permission to do it. And you could do either 55k or 27.5. And I was like, but of course you have to go big or go home, really, don't you? So it was hoying it down with rain all day, got soaking wet. It was the wettest day of the year, but actually I had a really good time.
And with sorry, Mike.
You're saying that you had a really good time. Mm-hmm. Was that because it was pouring rain? Were you prepared for it?
I was prepared for it in as much as I'd run a marathon in the June, and I'd still been, getting quite high mileage, and I wasn't following a particular training program, but I was, so I was just being a bit chaotic. But I ramped up the mileage in the 6 weeks. I didn't mind that it was raining. I had some good kit, and it was just one of those, well, I'm going to do it, aren't I? So here we go. And yeah, my family, I've got 2 sons, and my husband came and met me at various points. At one point, they bought me some dry trainers and dry socks. And Strava doesn't think I did an ultra because I paused my Garmin, and then I was fannying on with my socks and my trainers, and it auto saved, didn't it? So that wasn't very much fun.
No.
So I drew the map. I completed it by drawing it and went, this is what I did.
Quite right. And I'm actually intrigued by your solo marathon with your first time. Obviously, we're all in, like, just coming out of lockdown. There was that time of uncertainty. How did you manage that? Did you do one big loop? Like, what were the logistics for that for you?
I'm trying to think because did a couple. So I think the first one I did it as an out and back, so I didn't have any choice but to keep going. So I started from my house, and I'd run a lot of the trails. I mean, I live sort of on the edge of Newcastle, so I live on the edge of a city, but there are some trails relatively close by that now I can't go and run on because I ran so much during lockdown. I'm just sick of them. But I went out and ran a route that I think it wasn't quite out and back. I knew that I had a half marathon out and back route, and then I just sort of did a loop on the end of that. And
and then with your fueling for that, because a lot of people's first marathons, I mean, mine in particular was Edinburgh, so it was checkpoint to checkpoint. You have your water stations, your aid stations, crowds cheering you on. There's like so many aspects of that, the mental, and as Mike mentioned, the fueling. So the questions I have from that is, one, mentally, how did you press on without those crowds and support? And then the other question is fueling. Did you just carry everything with you?
Yeah, so I did carry everything with me. I just had a backpack and had the snacks. And then I can't quite remember, but I think it was mostly gels then. So I'd certainly used gels for the Great North Run, and so I think that's what mostly I took with me. I can't remember. So I had water bottles. I can't remember whether I had Tailwind or anything like that in it then. I can't remember at what point I started using that. It must have been before. I used that for the 55k, the first ultra. So I can't remember if I took real food, but I certainly didn't stop to buy stuff along the way, and nobody came out and met me with stuff. I can't remember what was the other thing you asked. How did I motivate myself?
It was the mental strategy. Yeah.
And I had the llamas in my phone, so when I was struggling, I could message them, and about 20 people jumped straight on, going, "Yay, go on, you're great!" So that was quite cool. They were like a little cheerleader in my phone. But looking back, I don't actually remember particularly struggling with it. I was just like, well, I'm going to do it. And, I didn't run the whole thing. So most of my long runs, I'll walk them. So I'll do 15-minute runs and 5-minute walks, and then eat every other walk break. So it sort of gives me a bit of a break, but also gives some structure to it. And all you have to think about is the next 15 minutes. And I just remember getting home and being like, yes! There was a virtual marathon I'd signed up to, but I wasn't expecting to do it all in one go. So I gave myself that medal for that.
Oh, fantastic.
And out of all the races you've done, and there's probably plenty more that you haven't mentioned yet, what's your favourite one been?
My favourite is probably the Great North Run. And it's not because I like objectively, it's a crap race, really. It's like, it's road, it's got no views, it's everything I don't like about running. So I like trails, I like views. I don't like millions and millions of people, and all of that. But the atmosphere is absolutely superb, and it's just really emotional, reading everybody's back signs and high-fiving the kids. And last year I nearly didn't bother. I nearly turned around and went home because it was really rubbish weather, and I thought it won't have any of the atmosphere, it won't have any of the things I like. But it was amazing how many people still came out to support, and it's second to none for that. But But there's another couple as well. I can think there's been 2 races that I've done where I went into them with absolutely no expectations. So I was undertrained, nearly DNS. One was a Bridges to Boundaries Ultra in March last year, 55k out along the Tyne River, and then crossover and back again. And the other one was Kielder Marathon the second time I did it. And both times I was on the verge of not bothering, but I thought, well, I'm going to do a long run anyway. So, and I've paid for them, so I might as well just go. And as long as it's fun, I'll keep going. And when it's not fun, I'll stop. And actually, both of them, I had a blast from start to finish. I think there's sort of something about having permission to stop and not to worry about it and just be there for the crack that is really good. So yeah, those for the atmosphere and the fun, I think that's what I like.
Yeah. And the atmosphere that you get from Great North Run, would you be tempted to do something like London? I couldn't think of anything worse going down there, but that's what you get.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, but I've entered the ballot a few times. I'll keep entering it till I'm dead or I can't walk. But yeah, who knows? I'm not that bothered about road running. I did do Manchester Marathon as my first proper marathon on road rather than Kielder, which I did. And that was good atmosphere. So I do like the atmosphere, but I would take trails and beauty and the sort of the different support you get from the ultra running and trail running community is completely different, isn't it, to the atmosphere. It's much more my thing. So if I'm doing a road marathon, I'm not racing it and looking for a PB, and I'm having a laugh and walking bits if I feel like it, and chatting to people, and that's still what it's more about. So I'd like to do London if I get in, but we'll see.
And another community as well, one that Mike's very fond of, is the backyard one. You've definitely done at least Rasselbach, have you not?
Yeah,
one, I think.
I've done Rasselbach 3 times. I've got worse each time. The first time I did it, I did 9. I was really pleased with myself. I think I kind of thought 12 would be nice, but I was a bit undertrained. I think at the time of year it is March, because I'm often, the races I've tended to do for no particular reason, but they just have tended to be ones for sort of later in the year. So I've tended to be quite early in my training. So I was delighted when I managed 9, because that was, I was a bit underfit. And I had a really good laugh. That was the first Rasselbach backyard. And then the next time I had a go, which I think was when you won it, Mike, I did 7. I actually did 8, but the 8th one was I'm not getting back in time. I'm just gonna walk this, and I got back in about 15 minutes late. And then this year I did it, and I'd been injured this year at the beginning of the year. I had an ankle injury. And I just decided I was going to go because I knew a lot of people who were going to be there, and I would set myself a limit of 4 because I didn't want to break myself. And I did 4 and I stopped, and it was about the right time. It started to niggle a little bit in the 4th yard, and yeah, it was the head decision because I had bigger things that I cared more about this year. So,
and if it was the right time of year and you 100% training plan for it, how much do you think you'd get?
I don't think I'd manage 24, because I don't think I'm fast enough, and I would be pleased with 12, but I think I've heard that it's not very good to set yourself a target, because otherwise you reach that target and then you stop. So
a lot of people say that, but I disagree with it. But,
do you?
Yeah.
So why do you disagree with that? Is that what?
For me personally, I think you should set yourself a target, but it should be scary. It should scare you. Like you're saying 24. Set yourself a target of 30, but it has to be achievable. You have to believe that you can do it. And if you get to that, you'd be delighted. Yeah. So
I'd be delighted at 24, if I'm honest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So set yourself the target of 30. Try and get to the 30. There you go. I've set myself a target of 80. So there you go. That scares me.
And that number, you have to have somebody else who's equally insane, don't you? That's the thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm doing the Rasselbach backyard in March, so we'll see. Hopefully I'll be a bit fitter then.
So going back for the fourth year, you would definitely recommend it then?
Oh, I love it. You know, it's good atmosphere. I really like that it completely levels the playing field on each yard. You don't have to be the best, the fastest. You just have to be the most stubborn on the day. And you know, obviously everything has to work out for you. You could go out and roll your ankle 100 meters from the start line, and there's a lot of routes, and it's trail, it's uneven. So you know, anything can happen. And you know, I think going into big races, you know, anything, however well prepared you are, however good a training block you have, however well fueled you are, however your head is, something can go wrong. And you know, but it levels the playing field in the way others don't. And you know, I think it's so much more about what's up here, isn't it? And I quite like that because I'm not a fast runner.
And Rasselbog, they don't just do the backyard, they have other events now, don't they? I see they're growing.
I really like their events. So they've done a marathon weekend the last couple of years with a marathon and a half marathon with really, really good long cut-off. So they're really achievable to anybody. But equally, if you're competitive and want to go fast, you can as well. This year they had an 8K as well. And I think next year I've seen they've got an ultra. But I'm actually away next year for it, so I won't be able to give that a crack. But they do lots of lapped events, sort of 6 hours in various places, mostly in the Midlands. Sherwood Pines they do it at, which is where they do the backyard. They've got another backyard, I think, somewhere else this year as well. But and I like the sort of sociable side of the lapped events. I mean, lots of people hate them, don't they? Because they think they're boring. You're going round and round, but the trails where they have them are really beautiful. So I don't get bored, and I just embrace the fun and change my outfit every lap. And you know, it's like Eurovision of trail running. It's good. Just have a good laugh.
Just to big up Rasselbach even more. I think they do a lot of sort of female participation, trying to encourage it.
They do, definitely. And they do. Sorry.
No, I probably miss out half this stuff because it doesn't apply to me, but there is a lot of encouragement for it. So you might know better than I do.
Yeah, and they have the pay it forward scheme where you can donate race entries. So if people can't afford to enter, they can get one of the free entries, and they put a lot of money and some of the contribution from each race entry towards removing plastic from the waterways. So yeah, and they're just thoroughly nice people, aren't they, as well? You know,
definitely.
I love that the aid station food is cake made by the race director's mum. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Well, Alice just sold it to me, so I'll
have to come down.
Tail end of next year. And if you're at one of the events, I definitely can't imagine myself getting bored.
Get yourself to the backyard, Nikki. I think there's still a couple of places.
I think Mike would be desperate for me to do one. You talked about changing your outfits there every yard. Can you talk about that? What outfits do you like to wear?
Oh, I like so mostly I'll just change my tops because it gets a bit silly if you're doing a full kit change. But I do like my Flancy kit. I'm an ambassador for Flancy, and I'm not one of these people that wants to be an ambassador for the sake of the badge. I really believe in their kit. So they're a really good small company. The kit's brightly coloured and cheerful, which I love, and it's really practical as well. So I've worn it. The longest distance I've worn it for is 70 miles, and I got no chafing. It's got 3 pockets, 2 pockets on the legs, pockets on the zip pocket at the back. So yeah, it's brilliant. I really, really like it. But mostly I just change my tops, but I do wear fancy dress sometimes as well. So I've ran a sort of 6K loop, not in the backyard, but a 6K loop at one of their Sherwood Pines events, dressed as a traffic cone, which is where the traffic cone llama comes from. I have silly hats. I don't think I've worn any other stupid full outfits there, but I do like a bit of fancy dress sometimes.
A tradition that I think it comes from Australia. You have to get to lap 22 at a backyard because 22 is when you wear your tutu.
Your tutu. So you also park run on the 22nd of the month. You have to wear tutus as well. So I need to get to lap 22, don't I? At least.
See, when Mike said lap 22 in Australia, I thought he was going to say kangaroo. What's the wackiest outfit that you've worn then, Alice? Like fancy dress? What's the craziest?
Probably a giant breast. You weren't expecting that. I'm doing fundraising for CoppaFeel this year, which is a breast cancer charity. Sort of their real thing is about highlighting breast awareness in young women or young people, because it's not just women that get affected. And I've got so I'm doing the Great North Run for them this year. I actually have a membership to the Great North Run, which means I have guaranteed entry every year, but I was an idiot who forgot to enter. So I had to find a charity entry, and I thought, no one's going to sponsor me to just run the half marathon, are they, after other silly things I've done? So I thought, I know, I'll have to wear something daft. So yeah, I'm doing the Great North Run dressed as a tit. I've done a park run with it on. It'll need some adjustment to avoid chafing. I was going to do it. I entered a 100 miler this year. I was going to do it for my final mile of the 100 miler because I hit my fundraising target. But that didn't quite pan out as planned. But Great North Run.
When you say you need adjustments, I think you need a sports bra.
You definitely need a sports bra, but yeah, not to hold back. But yeah. The straps that you have over it was quite chafy. Yeah, I think hold it still.
Enough of the bad dad jokes. Next question was, what is your biggest running achievement?
So that was the wall. It's a rat race event. It's 70 miles from Carlisle to Newcastle. And living in Newcastle, I was quite taken by the idea of finishing on the quayside in Newcastle, in the city that I love. And the first time I attempted it was it's June, July time in 2021. And yeah, so that would have been my second or third ultra at that point. And I'd trained really hard. I was really fit. I'd sorted out my fueling, so I thought, and got myself in a really strong headspace. And I did the section to the first checkpoint, went like a dream. And then I went to try and eat some food at the first checkpoint and went, oh, don't fancy that. Never mind, I've got loads of snacks. And then a little bit further down the road, and I started to feel really, really sick. And I'm quite intolerant to feeling sick. I really, really hate it. And my husband was sort of coming and seeing me at various points. And we went and sat in a cafe for about an hour, and I had some fat Coke and got myself so I could actually at least drink. And then got the shit, basically. And it was way too early. I had run ultra distance but it was too early to think I can carry on like that. And I think maybe if I'd had been a bit more experienced, I might have carried on a bit. But, it was one of those, I thought I was risking making myself properly ill. So I was absolutely gutted. But when I look back, I think it was I'd been really daft with my fueling, because I think I mentioned I do 15-minute runs, 5-minute walks, and eat every other 5 minutes. And for some reason on the start line, I thought, oh, it's a really long way. Maybe I should eat every walk break. So I think what I'd done is just eaten too much, and you can't metabolize it when you're running. So if you can't metabolize it, it's got to come out somehow. It did. So yeah, DNF that, but I definitely felt like I had unfinished business, and within a couple of days I'd entered for the following year. And so I did it in 2022 and finished, and I did it with two good friends then, and crossing that finish line, having DNF the year before, was really sweet.
When you
said that was one of your first races. How many ultras have you done?
That's the longest one I've done. Well, I ran an ultra in the backyard once. I've done a few 50k-ish races, so not masses. I'd entered the rat race 100-mile castle to castle this year. That was the first one that has really lit my fire for excitement since the wall. But yeah, I got to 34 miles and decided I'd had enough. So I don't know whether that's unfinished business or not. And
for those that don't follow Alice on Instagram, you wrote what I found was an absolutely brilliant post and just putting a spin on it. A lot of people say, oh yeah, it's brilliant, you know, you get to choose to suffer, and you chose not to suffer, and that really struck a chord with me. Just could you elaborate on that, on what made you write that?
Yeah, so it's one of those things. So I obviously, I think, like I said earlier, I'd obviously thought, well, there's no guarantees I'm going to get to the finish, but I think I'm in a pretty good place. I hadn't had a perfect run up. You know, I was injured earlier this year, and then 2 weeks before I was ill, I had like a viral thing, and I was in bed for a week basically. But you never have a perfect run up to these things, do you? So you just have to do the best with the hand you're dealt. So I thought, well, I might not manage if I'm get injured, or I might not manage if I'm not well. But barring those, I'm getting to that blooming finish line. And on the day, it was horrific. It was really wet. It was absolutely peeing it down with rain. I'd recce'd most of the route, so I kind of knew what I was up against, and I knew what to expect. And what really threw me was that I had an emotional low very early on. So I was expecting that to happen, and I was expecting probably it to happen just before halfway, because that's the toughest section. But it happened coming out of Berwick, which was the second pit stop, and this is at 23 miles. And I really struggled to know how I was going to pull myself out of that, because, you know, I've got a very, very long way to go. And I spent about 5 miles sort of crying, and that's not like me. So I get grumpy sometimes, but I've never got quite so upset. But I did pull myself through that. And I also had more dodgy guts, and I couldn't stomach the thought of eating. But then I did manage to eat. But I just got to the point where I was like, I'm 33 miles in. This is just rubbish. I'm not having a good time. The weather's awful. It's going to be awful pretty much for the rest of the race. I've got the toughest bit coming up. I'm not even, you know, I'm a third of the way there. I've got to basically run the wall again on top of how I feel, and I just don't want to do it. And, you know, I get very motivated by the choosing to suffer is a privilege, and Lucy Gossage says that a lot. And I do buy into that, and I do buy into being motivated by my friend who had breast cancer and died, and my patients who have breast cancer, and thinking, you know, they don't choose their challenge. I've paid for this and I've chosen it, so the least I can do is woman up and give it my best shot. But, you know, as I was thinking this and trying to motivate myself to keep going, I just thought, but you know what, you don't have to be a martyr. I can choose not to, and aren't I really bloody lucky? And those people who don't choose their suffering, probably if they could choose, well, they definitely choose not to have that suffering. But I can't imagine they would think any less of me if I went, I'm not enjoying myself, I want to stop. And it's, of all the reasons I thought I might stop, I didn't think for a second it would be that. But actually, isn't that the best reason? You know, I just don't like it. And I don't know, I wasn't expecting it all to be fun. And, you know, I was expecting to go to some really dark places. Now, it was really going to stretch me. And I've never ran all the way through the night. The longest I've run is to about 3 in the morning. And I was worried about that. And I was worried about how long it would take and how I would keep going. But I didn't think I would just decide to stop. And I'd had long chats with my husband and my sons about keeping me going. I'd chatted to Vic, the runner, who's a friend of mine, about what she uses to keep going when she's up against it. And she'd given me some really helpful hints, not just for me, but for them, helping me. And they, bless them, they did everything I'd asked of them. And my youngest son ran the last mile with me. Well, I say ran, I was walking by that point. And he was saying, but, you know, he was saying everything that I'd wanted him to about, come on, you know, don't be a wuss. And, you know, you want to do 100 miler, you're 33 miles in, you're 34 miles in, just keep going. And, you know, think about the achievement, think about crossing the line. I can't remember everything he said to me, because I was just like, Adam, you're saying everything I wanted you to say. Well done. I don't want to. And it was just, it was so clear. And then looking back, it feels a bit surreal, because it isn't really me to do that, but at the same time, it was an absolute no-brainer, and I don't regret it. It was the right decision. But yeah, so I don't know if that's unfinished business or not, because I think if I was going to go again, I have to decide I want it, because if you don't want it, you're never going to manage, are you, really? And on one hand I do, but well, I do, but do I want it enough?
Yeah, I think if you're not sure that you want it, you've kind of already prepared yourself to stop.
Yeah, 100%. So I have to decide I want it and really believe it and really want it, or there's no point going again. So watch this space. I don't know.
Well, I know their next event they're going. Is it not from Edinburgh to?
Yeah, Edinburgh to Glamis.
Yeah, that's the
so
one.
Yeah, so I couldn't do the Bamburgh to Edinburgh next year because we're away, but so I obviously haven't ruled it out, because I did go, well, I could do Edinburgh to Glamis, and then Rasselbach are actually doing they do a 24-hour track event every year, and they just said they might do a 48-hour one, and I thought, on the one hand, running around a track for 100 miles sounds pretty unappealing, but if you're surrounded by really good people and all you have to do is go out and just run another 400 meters, maybe that's the way. Don't know, or do it myself with either the house as a base and 10-mile loops, or I don't know. I have thought about ways I might do it, so I obviously haven't completely ruled it out, but I need to sort my head and decide if that's what I want.
If you're thinking about doing a track race and you're worried about time, there's Cobain events. They do a 25 hours because they do it on the day where the clocks change, so you get the extra hour.
That's quite cool. Is it them that do the nutty tunnel and bridge ones as well?
Ones, Alice, yes.
I'm not doing that.
I'm proud to say that I'm the person with the most amount of his medals.
Excellent. That's pretty cool.
That same track race as well, Mike, that you're not allowed music, you're not allowed support, you're not allowed friends, you're not allowed anything joyful.
You're not allowed to have fun. Do you think you're allowed to run just as a traffic cone?
Probably not, no, because that would be too fun.
You're allowed to talk
to people.
Terrific.
It sounds terrific. Vic, the happy runner, she was saying she falls over asleep, falls over, and she finds herself like in this gutter in the tunnel. I'm like, no, that's not for me.
Yeah, I've run quite a few races with Vic.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question on our question set is, why do you run?
Because I can. So I mean, it's going back to the thing about what motivates me. I guess it's, I'm fit enough. I've got a really supportive, caring family that indulges me in all the silly challenges I want to do. And your health isn't a given, is it? And I'm 52 and I've got friends who have got cancer. I've got know people who've had other significant health issues, and you never know when the run's going to be your last. And I really, really enjoy it. It makes me happy. So I just think, because I can, really.
So you run because you can, but while you're out there running, while you're out there doing a really long event, what do you think about?
So it depends on whether it's getting tough or not. So I think when it's getting tough, I think about my friend Alena, who died from breast cancer, and I think how she faced her death with dignity and courage, and if she could face that challenge that she hadn't chosen, I can woman up and face it until I decide I don't like it, obviously. So I think about her. I think about my patients for the same reason, that you watch what they go through, and how lucky and privileged I am to be able to be out there and to have the fitness and the money to be able to pay for going to all these nutty events, and the support. And that's what motivates me. And for the big long runs, and when I'm fundraising, I'll do memory miles. So I get people to sponsor a mile for somebody they love, and they don't have to give fundraising, but most people do. So for the 100, I had somebody for every single mile, and we genuinely talked about each person mile, so it breaks it down really nicely. It's right, this mile is for so and so, this is for my granny, this is for my friend, this is for someone's dad, and we talk about the person and why we're running for them. Yeah, so it's often a lot of that, and thinking, you know, I'm here because I've chosen to be. I've chosen this challenge, and I can choose not to do it if I want to, but I'm choosing to stay. And that was, you know, good. I did the lap earlier this year, and that got quite tough. And I was like, no, I'm choosing to stay here. I'm not going to get a taxi back to the finish. Sometimes it was through gritted teeth. Yeah.
With the memory miles, does that, I can imagine that getting quite emotional, does it?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I can be like, when I was on a bit of a downer and I was like, and then I looked and went, oh, this is my friend's aunt who's just died. So pull yourself together. This is for, you know, the real chokers, where there was 2 young men who'd ended their own lives. One when he was 18, so it was like, oh, he's forever 18, and another one when he was 17. So those were pull yourself together.
Yeah,
you can keep going. So yeah, it does help.
I can imagine that being a motivator.
Being a memory mile, how do you remember which mile is which
person? I had written down on bits of paper, and I thought I could have it, but if the phone dies, and I had like a Ziploc bag, so it didn't get ruined in the rain. So I had you know, load on one bit, and when you finish that page, I'd put that into my backpack, and then the next one would be there. So that would just be in my Geeky Hiker buffet pouch, would have the memory miles list as well.
So you seem to do an awful lot for fundraising. Have you got any projects coming up this year, or voluntary events, anything that you've got coming up aside from your Great North Run that you've already mentioned?
Yeah, so it's the Great North. I did some fundraising that for CoppaFeel, but that was, I kind of tagged the 100 onto that as well. So I was doing memory miles for people for that as part of that Great North Run fundraising. I've done similar for in the year I did the wall. I'd spent a year of fundraising for Mountain Rescue, but I haven't got other fundraising projects this year. I've got, I guess, another thing I'm working towards is I like my park runs. I don't know why, because I don't like 5K and I don't particularly like getting up in the morning, but I like the challenge, and I'm closing in on my 100th different venue. So that will be, my 100th venue will be on the 8th of November at Bushy. So I'm doing that. But yeah, I've got a few races booked in, but no sort of particular standout project as such. I guess the biggest one coming up is Escape from Meriden in November, and I think I'm looking forward to that, because that will challenge my head, and it's the running through the night thing, and I'm doing it with a couple of friends, so that should be good.
And do you have any races in the near or even distant future that you would have on your bucket list?
So I've kind of ground to a bit of a halt at what my bucket list is, because I sort of had a little thought in the back of my head at some point of maybe doing the summer spine, but that's well and truly thrown in the bin now, because I think if I want to do 100 miles, I don't want the suffer fest that is 268. But that was as a sort of maybe, could I do that? So that's shelved. And I guess it's whether another 100 is on my bucket list, but yeah, not sure. The other things I've got, well, Great North Run, I've said. I've got 2 valleys. I'm doing that with a group of women that I met earlier this year through Instagram. We went for a trail running weekend, and we're meeting up again to do that. So more about the social and the chat than anything else. And I've got Marathon Erie. I entered the ballot for that and promptly forgot about it until I got the email saying I was successful. But I think that'll be a good crack as well. You know, challenge over difficult terrain is the sort of other thing I'm interested in pushing and seeing how I can get on.
And you're obviously doing a backyard with Nikki as well.
Yeah, backyard in March.
Oh, you know what? That would be definitely on my. That's not even a bucket list. That's happening.
Get yourself in. There's not many places left, so get yourself booked.
Sharing a crew in a tent, Alice. I don't think they'll know what hit them if the two of us. Well, before Mike moves on to the next question, we're talking about bucket list races. I want to highlight the Highland Fling and Devil of the Highlands north of the border. They are spectacular events.
Yeah,
Coming up
you've
for
told me a lot about them. They do sound good.
Oh, the Devil, it's really, really challenging, but what scenery, even when it's raining, it's Mike and I, as you know, are big fans of the West Highland Way anyway, but to come up and do them, it's just something else. The volunteers, the race organisers, it's just, they're such great events. So
and that's what makes it, isn't it? It's the people that are there. It's, you know, and that is what changes a race from being average to being right up there and amazing.
Yeah, they're spectacular. So get them on your list.
And the next question is always our most difficult question to ask. But I think you may have already mentioned the answer, but you might have something totally different. The question is, who would you like to run with the most? Whether alive, not, fictional or not.
Yeah. So I've got a couple people. So I'm really inspired by women that go and really push the boundaries, and particularly when they manage to beat the men. Not that I have anything against men, but it's just really inspiring. And so I guess there's a couple of Annas that tick that box. So Anna Troop, who obviously won the Spine outright this summer, and has just won the women's race of Race Across Scotland. So, and also she's similar age to me. She's actually a little bit older than me, and is smashing it despite that, and has, I think, come back from quite significant injury. So I think she'd be a really inspiring person, although I doubt I better keep up with her. And the other Anna is Anna Rutherford, that won the Castle to Castle that I DNF'd on. She finished it in something like 17 hours, and despite that, she sort of stopped and checked some bloke who'd passed out on a golf course wasn't dead, and she actually got home and was in bed pretty much 2 hours before the next person finished. So again, I wouldn't keep up with her, but she'd be quite inspiring. But I guess I'd like, if we're in Fantasyland and we can pick someone who's dead, I'd like to run with my mate Alena, but she would roll her eyes. She wasn't a runner. She couldn't run because she had ear injuries from when we were students together, and she'd be like, "What are you doing all this for? Have you lost your mind?" But in Fantasyland, she'd come for a nice trail run with me, and we'd have a good laugh.
Oh, they're great answers. And I bet you the two, no matter how fast they are, I bet you the two Annas probably would run with you because you're great fun.
They probably would. Well, and Anna Rutherford is in the same in a Facebook group, and is very normal, and was asking, before it all started, was sort of asking questions about, well, what are you going to do for fueling, and how, asking all about kit, and then like pulls this out. It's like, whoa, not worthy.
But I think the trail community and the ultra community, with what we call the front runners, that most of them are like that. They're so gracious, and
it is.
To give their advice. It is a bit of a pinch me moment when people like that are. I mean, look at Mike.
Yeah.
So unless Mike has any other questions, the last question that we have on our set is, what's next for you running wise, aside from, you've mentioned Bushy Park Run?
I think Bushy Park Run, Great North Run, pondering, sorting my head out, I think is the main thing, and trying to work out what was going on in my head that made me stop. And the weather didn't help, but I need to work that out, I think, because until I work that out, it's difficult to know what big things I would take on. At the moment, I don't necessarily want to book anything above the things I've already talked about, because I want to work out whether I've still got 100 in my heart.
Well, I think that brings us to a close tonight. And it just comes from me to say thank you, Nikki, for being Nikki, and thank you, Alice, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming on.